Friends, as you know, I spent the last 11, 12 days in Israel. And I don't want to give a report about Israel. I mean, I think that's quite boring. But I want to share with you two amazing things that happened to me. I'm going to do them in the reverse order for obvious reasons. You know, I was in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and then in Jerusalem because my daughter was ordained as a rabbi on November 10th. On November 11th, it's a long story. We had this plan to go to a synagogue called Kol HaNishama, which is a very Widit synagogue in a Widit part of Jerusalem. And of course, we have 3 little grandchildren, and they decide the timetable. And by the time we started walking there, it would have taken 40 minutes or something. We said, forget it. Okay, so that was the end of that. So, of course, being an infinitely creative person as I am, which I'm not, I said, you know, let's do something well, let's just do it. Let's walk to the Western Wall, okay? Now, it's a little bit complicated because we had a stroller, and it's kind of difficult to actually, from where we were in the center of Jerusalem, to get to the wall. It's not that it's so confusing, but it's a little bit complicated, whatever. So we were going through the old city, and my son-in-law, Omer, was incredibly nervous because there have been a lot of very uncomfortable things that have happened in the old city. This is way before. And so we all started getting paranoid, and I'm scared of my shadow. So we end up at the Western Wall. And I'm sure some of you have been there. It is an event. I don't know, the lights are blaring, and you go, so there's the back area, but then there is this section close to the wall. And as I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, the men's section is much larger than a women's section. So I was there, and I decided I'm going to go into the men's section. Usually I don't even go into it because I don't like the scene there. So I went into the men's section, and you have multiple little synagogue experiences going on. I wish I understood all the different communities. You had a Chabad group that was kind of taking a group of kids who didn't seem to really know what was going on, and they were working with them. It was very nice. Then you're with the Chassid, you're with different groups of Chassidim, and you go there, and I decided I'm going to go towards the wall and touch it, which I never do. So I went to the wall, and I saw all the kafitels, all these pieces of paper that were written in there. And people don't know that they're collected very frequently, and they bury them. I mean, anyway. So then I walk back, and I look at what's happening in the women's section. And interestingly enough, there are men in the women's section feeling that they had the right to move chairs and whatever. And I had this experience, family, let's go to the Western Wall and have whatever experience we're going to have. And I have to say, I came away so alienated from the experience, where it was Friday night, and, you know, you want it to be something, and you know it's a great center of Jewish energy and gathering and whatever, but it is filled with people that I'm not angry with or don't dislike, but they're people who are there, and different groups are there who are another planet for me. And it's you have to sit there and try to figure out what is your relationship to it. I mean, the purpose of Israel is to bring all the Jewish people together as one nation, as one people. And then I'm a rabbi, and I go to the Western Wall on Friday night, and I'm with people. It's not that I didn't want to be with them. I didn't have a relationship to them. And I felt such alienation in such sadness. And I don't know what to do with that. I just had to share it with you because, not to discourage people from going to Israel and going to the Western Wall, which is fine, and people get good vibes out of it, that's great. I'm only sharing with you one Jew from Kansas City at the Western Wall on a Friday night, and this is what I'm experiencing. That's part two. Let me go to part one. As I said, I was there for the ordination of my daughter Leora, and she's been here and she's spoken here, and she's just a great kid. But I'm not sharing this story about her to kfel, to just brag. I'm not. There's a purpose to me sharing this story. You know, our daughter Leora became one of the five among five Israelis who became rabbis in the Reform movement in Israel. And her biography is interesting, and I'm going to share it objectively. You know, she grew up in a pretty Jewish home, I would say. You know, we had Shabbat, we built a sukkah, we had seders, we lit candles. You know, we've done the Jewish stuff in our lives. Okay, I'm just telling you, we've done it. Maybe we haven't done it as well as other people have done it, but we've done it because we believe in it. She went to Jewish day school for many years. She belonged to Jewish youth groups, and as you know, I was part of the conservative movement, so she was part of USY for many years. She went to a Hebrew-speaking camps. We even took her to Israel when she was 6 years old, and Jane and I turned to each other and said, she's not leaving. We just knew something. So she got into college. She was going to go to a very fine small school in Towson, Maryland, called Goucher, as many of you are aware of it. And she went to Israel in a transition year, a gap year, and she decided not to return to America. She was 18 years old. Now, obviously, when you start interrogating her, she needed to get away from us. She did. She needed to get away from us. She had enough of us. Sometimes I have enough of myself. But she went to Israel. She decided to go to college in Israel. She got her BA, and then what did she do? She started working for El Al Airlines, one of the people who checks you in. Then she decided to teach in the Israeli public school system. And then she worked for the Religious Action Center with Anat Hoffman, who has been here. She eventually decided to go to rabbinical school at the Hebrew Union College, which is the Reform Seminary. It took her 6 years. She raised 3 children. She's raising 3 children. She's lived through 2 wars, COVID-19. She tutors to make a living. She works at Beit Daniel, the synagogue that's the Center of Reform Judaism in Tel Aviv. And of course, she did all this in Hebrew, which is not her native language, which I can't quite figure out. And what was so touching to me is that she selected me to stand beside her when she was ordained. And I said, why do you want me up there? Just let me be a parent. But I stood up there and I cried and I cried and I cried. So one of the people, it happened to be one of the former heads of the Hebrew Union College, very lovely gentleman, a rabbi, a great scholar. He came up to me after, and he said, this is a miracle. And she said, what do you mean? She said, well, okay, these are 4 other Israelis. Here's this Jewish kid from the United States who came to Israel at 18, and now she's an Israeli Reform rabbi. But then people said something to me that I didn't feel comfortable with. Because she said, well, she's following in your footsteps. A tiny yes and a big no, if that can be. Yeah, I'm a rabbi. Jane is a Jewish educator. Yes, she's had these experiences that I shared with you. And to a certain extent, she's reflecting whatever we gave her. On the other hand, in looking at her life and looking at her journey, looking at her career, she has more wisdom and knowledge and skills that I'll ever have. That's just a fact. But what's important to me is that she represents the Reform Jewish vision as opposed to what happened Friday night at the Western Wall, which is she has some great teachers, some great scholars, probably better teachers than I had in rabbinical school. She had great experiences, learned a great deal. But the fact of the matter is that her Judaism is not my Judaism, and that's the way it should be. She will create her own theology, her own forms of practice based on her understanding, not mine. She will pray from an all-Hebrew prayer book edited by Reformed Jews in Israel, not our Union prayer book. Nothing against our Union prayer book. In Israel, she will fight against political and religious forces, and as you know, looking at the government, they want to do more and more and more to limit the freedom and the opportunities of Reformed Jews in Israel. And she will have to fight for democracy and compassion and freedom because, unfortunately, those are things that are in smaller quantities in Israel today, and that's just a fact. But I'm not talking about Leora, I'm really talking about us. And my point here this evening is, on the one hand, we have to hold on to our tradition, our Judaism, all of its wonders, all of its things, all of its sacred, all of its sacred texts, all of its teachings. We need to hold on to it and nurture them and accept them. But the flip side of it is without new rabbis, without new ideas, without new approaches, without new teachers, without new leaders, without new congregants, there is no Judaism. And the fact of the matter is that that's what her ordination means to me. It has significance, not just me as a parent, and Jane as a parent, and our celebration of our family and our love for her, but the fact is that a Jewish girl from New York or from Florida, wherever she wants to call herself from, can go to Israel, become an Israeli, become part of Israeli society, and then say she wants to do her own path. If that isn't what Reformed Judaism is, then if this isn't Reformed Judaism, I don't know what it is. So I am proud of her. I'm not going to tell this story more than another 100 times because I love telling it. But you know what I mean. She's a symbol of something. And we need that so desperately. We need it in our own congregation. Yeah, we need a new spirit. And it's not that the old spirit is bad. It's unless we constantly are renewing and discovering new things, going to the well and finding new water, doing the things that we need to do to generate a new spirit, Judaism will not survive. Leora is a blessing. You and I can be a blessing to the Jewish people. Shabbat Shalom.